I grew up in a house where the number one profession was drug dealing, actually.
What's the difference between, let's say, the production, the technology when it comes to playing music and podcasting, or like for your show, or like we're doing here?
Well, podcasting and music actually overlap a lot. My life was going in a very dark place. I told you, around 13, 12 years old, I was getting into a lot of trouble, running with the wrong people at the wrong time, and always in the wrong places. At some point, I start to realize this is not going to go morally the way that I want it to go. It's just not what it is. It's not because people are bad. It's because the standard of the way that I live as a Hasidic Orthodox Jew is just like really going to be very, very hard to tell and, put on the show the way that I wanted to. And the blessing and the curse was October 7th happened. I remember coming back home late one day. There was a rival gang across the street. They were fighting with somebody else. The other guys took off another direction. They thought it was us. So, I'm getting shot at 13 years old. I'm seeing bullets fly at my feet. There are people who literally sat up and figured out how to make bombs to kill a massive amount of innocent people at one time. Think about it. That's what they did with their technology. They sat up and really thought of how can they destroy the most amount of innocent people at one time. That's what they decided to do with the technology.
Welcome to another episode of IsraelTech. I'm excited to have here Nissim Black. Before we get into Nissim Black and talk about everything related to technology that has to do with podcasting and music, first I want to give a big shout out to our location partner and podcast partner, Google for Startups. Google for Startups is really doing a lot of work here in the ecosystem, so we want to give them a big thank you, bringing all kinds of people together and being able to bring this kind of content to you. If you're not already, make sure you're already liking and subscribing to us on YouTube, 5 stars on Spotify and Apple, and you can also sign up for our newsletter. Everything is down in the description, and let's do it together. Let's bring the IsraelTech ecosystem. Let's put it a la mapa, so to speak. Nissim, thanks for being here.
Thank you, brother, for having me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it.
So there's a bunch of things I want to talk to you about, but one thing we kind of been talking about as we were doing a mic test and all that is you got geeky on the tech equipment. Now, this may surprise people,
right?
As I was telling you earlier out there, is that I love technology,
right,
but I'm not a tech person.
Right.
So I follow tech, the developments, what it means for war, defense, geopolitics, how it's being used for what, the businesses,
the good
the
stuff,
competition. Like, I love it. But then anything related to actual, let's get like literally in tech, like let's get our hands dirty. No. So how did you get into technology, or did it just naturally happen?
So this is so funny. I have not really got to talk about this. So I grew up in a house where the number one profession was drug dealing, actually. I always say non-legal pharmaceuticals. So I grew up in that type of world, but there was a period in time where I think it was my stepdad, who was my dad, he raised me. His best friend went to go learn tech. I forget which technological institute or something like that. And my dad didn't go, but everything that he learned, he came back and he taught my dad. Wow. And so they were going through, all these notebooks. I remember seeing all these complex notebooks. And then all of a sudden, they started building computers. There was a lot of technology coming into the house. And I would literally sit there for days and watch my dad literally build computers. And so then they started a company called Integrated Network Consulting. They worked on Port of Seattle and worked on a lot of the, technology that was operating the systems over there. And I'm talking about guys from the hood, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like, I'm from Seattle, Washington. So I grew up around tech. I was always interested. I used to, always been into music. Obviously I'm a recording artist. So, but even when I was 8 years old, they bought me my first beat machine. I had a Roland, which was a Roland, I can't remember what the name of this, it was an older beat machine. I had that. So what I did was I had a karaoke machine. I hung it off I had one of those hanging vents that would go underneath the ceiling. So I put the microphone over that. So that was like my mic stand. I had to hang it up. Now, both my mother and my father were hip hop artists. So they actually pioneered hip hop in Seattle in the early 1980s. And so because of that, I found a photo album. It had so many different, their first record and concerts and all that. So I put that on the walls. That was on the walls for my motivation. And then I would go back into the back shelter room, and I grabbed all of the old sound system stuff, and I set up everything inside of my room. And I from then on had my own makeshift music studio, and I would dub over with this tape and that tape. And so I was always into technology. It was never a point in time. So we had Windows 95 and 95. Like, we were really early on a lot of the things. And so since I grew up with computers, and obviously the computers started coming into the schools very early, I was a little bit ahead of the class because I I already had all that going on at home.
Wow. And so when did you go in and like doing that own learning? You incorporated obviously what you were learning and maybe the technology that was hanging around the house.
Yeah.
But then when did you kind of take it on your own and maybe go and pursue your own technology when it comes to recording?
So I think it was right around when I was 15 years old. There was a producer who started producing me. I started recording professionally when I was 13. So I used to go to a studio, go to a producer. He had like a big basement studio.
How did you get into that at 13? Would your family connect
So,
you? I'm just thinking
I was doing what you were doing at 13. You weren't doing that?
and I'm thinking of my 14-year-old daughter. And I'm like,
Trust me, I was getting into a lot of other things. So listen, it was, the street life was going on, gang banging, running, getting expelled out of school. And at the same time, I was very talented, and my parents recognized that. So they reached out to a close family friend who connected us with a producer, and we went to go meet with them. They took to me very, very, very much so. And I started recording with him, 13 years old, recording songs. I mean, this guy was producing already with Dr. Dre, Busta Rhymes, or whatever. Shout out to Vitamin D. He became like a big brother to me. So eventually, he had to move his studio out of the house. Mother was kicking him out the basement, and we had an empty basement because we had just had our house rebuilt. We had a fire, and so the house had just finished being rebuilt. And so my dad had worked out with him that if you teach my son everything that you know, right, then you don't have to pay rent, basically. So they literally, even thinking about that right now, the love that my parents had for me, that they were really like after making sure that I was not being in the place, even though there was nonstop stuff. So that really helped me. I learned Pro Tools, how to work DAW systems. I learned Logic Pro. And I had, musicians coming there all the time, some B-level, C-level artists that were very well known. So I got to sit in on a lot of sessions, learned how to mix, learned how to, so that was really my love of technology. It was the beginning of learning. I sat there with him. I would sit there for hours. And so he trained me basically to start running sessions in case he wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So that was really like my intern training.
It was basically a business. Right?
Totally a business for him.
Before we continue, let me tell you about our partner, Deal. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur. One of the hardest parts of being an entrepreneur is hiring the talent that you need, onboarding them, getting them the equipment that they need, and getting them paid. It's annoying. Compliance is difficult, and there's a lot of different laws in different markets. And most HR platforms, they're difficult to use. Deal is different. It's perfect for founders and startups like me, and grows with you as you scale. Imagine HR, IT, and payroll, all in one place, easy to use, and AI native. They take care of compliance, so you can focus on your business. And you'll like using it. Go ahead and see for yourself. Visit our partner at deal.com/IsraelTech. That's DEEL.com/IsraelTech. And now, back to the show. But it's interesting because like some of the things that I learned in business was also learning a one-on-one.
Right.
For like working with a lone wolf one time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things of the sort. But
right.
I find like that's kind of the best way to learn. Is that true? Would you say in technology too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, today we have YouTube, so sometimes you can skip even the one-on-one. Right. but yeah, no doubt about it. Like that one-on-one training of sitting there and watching these guys run sessions for me was huge. So I loved engineering. I always had sort of wished I had somebody else because I wanted to be on the creative side also. Like, it's always that running back and forth.
Do you remember that? Like now, like as a kid, like there were moments where like, I want to do this something maybe you saw that was creative and I want to do that and you didn't know who or where to turn to?
Not really. I mean, I was one of those guys where I'll figure it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? If I wanted to figure it out. So everything was out of necessity, right? I didn't have a studio, so I started making one when I was 8, right? So then when now I finally have a studio and I'm learning how to do things, so I have anybody else to record me, I have to learn. I have to learn how to do this, right? And then from then I had to learn how to do graphics because I can pay anybody to do my graphics. I'm just a teenage kid, you know what I mean? So I learned Adobe Photoshop. All this was on my own. And I learned how to use, I think I first started with Windows Player, and then, obviously got into Mac. Then I started working on iMovie, and then from iMovie to Final Cut Pro and whatever.
I'm pretend I know.
Okay. It basically was always like, because the artist in me, right? The creative in me wanted to do things. I started to notice if you waited on other people to get the things done, you'll never actually, get it done. You know what I mean? Unless you have unlimited amount of resources, and I didn't have those all the time.
Do you think that's because you were a creative person just by nature?
I think my creativity drove me.
I'm hearing from you where you are in your skill set. I'm hearing a lot of nature and nurture. right?
Got it. I hear you.
And I'm trying to understand how much is of each. Like, like in Nissim now, of course, a lot is your own,
Right.
know, like how much I feel like a lot of nature comes from, the personality that God gives you is I want to do something, I see something, okay, I'll go ahead and build it myself. Most people, I don't know how to do it. Let me just lean into things I know, which is also logical.
Yeah, I'm definitely I don't know how to do it. I'm going to figure it out.
And your report that wasn't taught to you because it's
No, I don't think it was taught to me. I think it was just something I had as a kid. I think it's an inherent personality trait of mine to do that God gave me to always want to figure it out. I mean, because just being honest, anything entertainment or anything like that, almost anything, when you have to wait on people, right? I run a podcast right now by myself. I'm doing monologue because I don't want to wait on anybody. I want to learn how to. I want to get it done myself, right? I don't want to wait on anybody to come set me up or whatever. So that drove me to learn everything. I have a passion now today for film and for to create things visually and all that because I was doing graphics for so long. I'm a recording artist. I shot so many music videos. I wanted to know what was going on, so I'm asking every time it's not a scene with me. What are you doing? What's going on with the camera? Why are you doing that? And I wanted to start figuring out, and I wanted to be able to tell my videographers exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be able to say, I want you to do an orbit shot. I want you to, shoot this one at 50 because I need a background compression on this. So I had to really figure out what I wanted to be able to say exactly what I wanted. Then eventually I was like, man, I'll just do it myself, right? So that's basically how it's happened.
So all your continued learning, do you now do things on your own or do you have do you bring on people to help you learn?
So sometimes I still feel comfortable, like for instance, I was just shooting in the South, not too long ago, going through Berry, through some of the kibbutzim after, October 7th. And I brought on another camera guy. I basically got it set up with the cameras and the looks and everything that I wanted. And I brought on another camera guy who was a professional, could have did it himself, but I wanted a certain look. So I still will bring people in to assist me on certain things, if need be. But a lot of times, if I could do it by myself, I usually would do it. As long as it's not going to be too time consuming, obviously. Have a family as well. So
yeah. What's the difference between, let's say, the production, the technology when it comes to playing music and podcasting or like for your show or like we're doing here now?
Well, podcasting and music actually overlap a lot, right? So like for instance, I tell you, there's an awesome plugin used that was created by Universal Audio. So the CVOX suite. And what this does is essentially cuts out background noise, right? So obviously for a podcaster, like, oh, that's great. But also for me, if I want to get a clean vocal, so I've used this plugin for both things. So you'll find with music and with podcasting, they always overlap with each other. And even I would say in video, like nobody wants to shoot anything and I have great sound. Like, you know what I mean? Like we can't ignore anything. Most of the movies that we watch is because of the music in the background, the sound effects, the everything. So a lot of these things actually they overlap. But I think music and podcasting is also presentation. When I open up my intro on my monologue podcast, I was getting comments from a lot of new viewers who were saying like, wow, you sound kind of like a rapper. Because I rap, right? So it's projection. How do I place my voice in front of the microphone and all that? Because I have training in the studio, then I know how to deliver on a microphone, right? So yeah, all these things, like, they overlap.
When you're opening a school or master class.
So it's so interesting that once you have learned things, but you didn't learn them in a traditional sense, it's very hard to teach them, right?
Oh, really?
Because it feels...
I would think the opposite.
Because it's more instinctual, right? Like I learned from instinct of like, okay, whatever. And then I had to remember, okay, that button does this again. Like I need to make a mental note of what it was. And it wasn't like I ever had to take a test on something, right? So it's like, for instance, languages. Most Israelis can't teach Hebrew. You grow up, nobody can teach the language that they speak unless they had to really learn. The best teacher is somebody that had to systematically learn grammar. They had to learn this and learn that, because most people don't really know. I just talk the way that I talk. I don't know how to give it over. So because of the way that I did learn, but it was more instinctual. It was more like out of a necessity, I had to pick up and learn how to do this. So there's things I could teach. But to say like I can give over like a whole curriculum or whatever, that would be a learning curve for me to actually be able to do it. But it's good.
Let's lean into that instinct thing you're talking about, right? So you said you had an instinct to kind of like learn or figure out, here's what I need to do and let me do it. In a sense, how much did that play a role in kind of your personal journey?
big role. I mean, what we call it is street smarts, right? You know,
right. Yeah.
you know, it's sort of like which I had a lot of. Didn't have a lot of book smarts, but I had a lot of street smarts. And I'm not saying whatever.
Street smarts will get you further.
Yeah, we'll get you much further.
I'll tell you, if you're Grace book smarts, you'll never end up really getting the street smart. If you get the street smart, you usually mature into also book smart.
No, it's true. It's very true.
And those are the wisest people.
Right, and usually a lot of times the wealthiest people, honestly. So there is something to be said where has it helped me throughout my life? Absolutely. It's helped me build a career. I've been able to do a lot of things. I can assist. You know, one thing I can say, I don't know about a school, but I assist other artists all the time inside the studio or producers and just sort of being able to, you know, be a model for a lot of these other people that are like, this person only knows how to do that. They don't know that. Like, I've had to learn how to be a jack of all trades, literally. And so that instinct of sure has helped me in my life. It's helped me in my personal life. My personal life has been all trying to figure it out. I mean, you don't move from Seattle, Washington to Israel, you know, 10 years ago. And everything is instinct at this point. Like, I have no idea what's going on. So no doubt about it. I think it's just, like I said, it's a part of my personality to figure things out. There are other things that block those things, though, also. Because I'm a creative, I live in a space of where there's no time, space, or matter also. So then it becomes, and that's almost the opposite of technology, almost, right? Technology is very systematic. It's numbers, it's this and that, whatever the case is. So, like, I'll tell you, for instance, shortcuts. So there's a DAW system most people use in the industry, in the music industry, called Pro Tools. Here in Israel, most people use Cubase. I don't know why. Logic is another program that, obviously, an Apple program of a DAW system. So, like, I was always a feel it type of person. So there's a mathematical way that if I wanted to take one of my choruses, that I could type in the number and, you know, they use the terminology and fly it over, you know, however many bars or measures over to the next part. I never did that. Like, I was always feel it. I was always timing. And then however I felt it, that's how I would literally copy and paste it over there and nudge it until it had the same exact, like, you know, everything was always feeling. So because of that, I'm not saying that that's it, but I think that is sort of indicative of the way that I've moved throughout life also too. So I'm not a numbers logic type of person or whatever the case is. You know, I used to call it back in the older days, called it MacGyvering stuff. You know what I'm saying? Sort of figuring out, putting duct tape on it, you know, to make it happen. So you know, that goes back to why I think it'd be hard to teach something like that too. Because when you don't have a systematic, and it's not in that, like, it's not in the box.
Right.
I'm very out of the box. In almost every place, I'm out of the box.
Are you a tech company looking to go to market and scale? Then you must check out wadidigital.com. They're Israel's leading tech marketing agency. They've helped hundreds of startups with demand gen, advertising, SEO and AI search, social media, video editing, and yes, they even help us here at IsraelTech. So if you like the content that we're putting out, support us, and be able to also go to market and scale like IsraelTech is doing, then you should reach out to our partners, Wadi Digital. And now, back to the show.
So I think all entrepreneurs are doing that, and I think that's a lot. You see that in tech, is just like, you just make it work.
Right,
like, there's a will, there's a way, and it doesn't matter how. It's about the end result, right?
Right.
Flashy and
no.
It's like, does it work?
Right, does it work? No, that's very true.
And then eventually you fail forward.
Yeah, and I fell forward.
How did you make it to Seattle to Israel other than the weather?
Other than the water. So I was on my spiritual journey, which started maybe when it actually started very young. My grandfather was a Sunni Muslim, so that introduced me to Islam when I was young, which really was my introduction to religion. Fortunately, my grandfather went back to prison. By the time I was 13, when he went back to prison, I was already 9. He was only home for about a year and a half. He spent most of his life in prison, unfortunately. That's where his life also expired, in prison. So after he went back, from that time on, I would have just said I was a Muslim. And then eventually I ended up, my life was going in a very dark place. I told you, around 13, 12 years old, I was getting into a lot of trouble, running with the wrong people at the wrong time, and always in the wrong places. And then a friend of mine introduced me to this program that was at a Christian organization. It was an after-school program. So I started going there. And because of today, like, you know, I do a lot of outreach, basically, some on purpose, some not on purpose, even with my podcast and everything else. And I probably have mostly Christian audience, even by my music. Most of the playlisting on Spotify even has been music. I go to Dallas Bible Belt, and there's like 1,000 Christians come out.
Like Bible Belt, but like if you're playing in New York,
I come to New York. How many Christians are in New York anyway?
That's a good question. Why not Jews and Christians? Now that I think about it.
So like, it has, so because of and the reason why I'm bringing that up is that because although I'm Jewish today, I'm obviously Orthodox Jew and believe in Orthodox Judaism. However, that time, that time in my life was so crucial and so critical. These people literally saved my life. Literally saved my life. So I have a Karasat Tov.
Let's give them,
Huh?
shine some positive light.
Shine some positive light.
How did they save your life? Explain.
Because I was headed down a very dark path. I was fighting almost every single night. I was, I got arrested.
Where were you fighting? Where'd you get arrested?
I used to fight outside these nightclubs and these parties and different things like that. There was obviously other gangs. I mean, I was shot at after, even not on purpose. I remember I was in the wrong. It's just you grow up in this type of environment where anything can happen at any time. I remember coming back home late one day. There was a rival gang across the street. They were fighting with somebody else. The other guys took off another direction. They thought it was us. So, I'm getting shot at 13 years old. I'm seeing bullets fly at my feet. So you grow up in that type of things. My house, I remember, 5, 7 years old, my parents coming home. I think when my dad was coming home with a couple other friends, uncles, quote-unquote uncles, and one of them was missing. He was dead. They had fire. They had bullets in their legs and stuff. So I grew up seeing a lot of that, a lot of drugs, a lot of usage around me. And then so by the time I was 13, became a product of my environment. So I was running with street gangs, and I was getting in trouble, going to juvenile, whatever the case was. And so by the time I started going to this place, which was really about hip-hop, it was music, it was a music program, just the environment in itself became a safe haven for me. Then they invited me to camp. In camp, I got to be a kid. I was out of my environment, and it was immersive. And then I became a Christian then, and that really helped me through high school. That I had a mentor.
You became a Christian?
I was 14.
And was it through this organization?
It was through this organization, no doubt about it. I had an awesome mentor there, John Reed. He was a great person who really held my hand like all throughout my high school years, until I found my wife. I started dating my wife going into my 11th grade year of high school or something like that. So we were high school sweethearts. So she eventually took over from there. But, through my high school years, these people literally were there for me. And I was an outreach kid. I had more than half of the kids going to Bible study groups, programs. I was in leadership programs and different things like that. So I have a big Karasat Tov. And so for me, a lot of times, that's one of the hardest parts sometimes. If you hear, even in the Orthodox, especially, one thing I don't like sometimes, and this is why I say I'm very unconventional when it comes to when people put other people down when they don't know, they've never been there, right? So I know that specifically, although I don't hold to Christian ideology or beliefs, a lot of sincere people love God, love Israel, love the Bible, like genuinely. It's not like it's a joke. It's not they're just trying to get us. Everybody goes, they're just trying to. No. There are people that are very, very genuine, and I was around a lot of those people that really, really were fighting to have a better life and to give over a better life. So because of that, I am that way, right? So even now, that has forced me to sort of be like, hold on, wherever we can have that conversation, we're going to have it. There's obviously places where we would disagree or whatever, but so those things, that was a part of my life. And then it wasn't until after I graduated high school, music was taken off. My demo ends up on the desk of an A&R from Virgin Records, who was on a Universal at that time. Started having conversations with them. Biggest thing in hip-hop was a guy by the name of 50 Cent. I'm sure you never heard of him. Chatzi Shekel.
Yeah, exactly.
Chatzi Shekel.
I only started at Shekel. He's definitely, he must be Jewish then.
I did see him have like a chain or a ring that said chef on it. You know what I mean?
No, he's a God-fearing man, I think. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. You just see some things out of him recently.
I don't know if he fears anything.
There you go, right? I welcome that too.
You welcome that? So,
you know what he's got?
What?
Courage.
That is true.
Courage is probably the most underrated and most important, underrepresented thing.
I agree.
That I think society needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Why do you think courage is lacking?
I think courage is lacking because we're in a victimized society. Everybody tells us you can't, right? Everybody tells us, and that's me specifically speaking as African American, coming black, like you grow up thinking that you can't, somebody telling you that you can't, right? One of my hardest things of when I converted to Judaism was coming in and hearing that you can't. In these generations, we can't do things like in the past generations or whatever. And I'm like, man, I've experienced God on a completely different level. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe that. Like, I just don't believe that, right? And so for me, I think that can't has become a part of like the human psyche today. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then we see somebody who didn't believe in it and we go, wow. That person's amazing. Look at what he did. Like a person like, I'm just saying, Elon Musk, like can't. That's like probably not even a thing for this guy already at this point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Don't bet against the man.
Don't bet against them, right? So it's like at some point, I think we realize it's a lot of nurturing. I talk about this in the old times, in olden days, and I don't want to go too deep into social issues, but you take the civil rights movement. You look at what was going on during the time of Jim Crow or whatever. That forced black people to be entrepreneurs, forced them to be builders. They had buses. They were doctors and lawyers and everything else, right? And to where we have a major lack in all of those areas and successful. I'm just talking about just the average person. I'm not talking about the big superstars and whatever cases. Really, really damaging the black community since, because after the civil rights movement enforcement, guess what? You're not going to go to your black doctor, you go to white doctor. It's always, they're the better ones. They're the better doctors. We need their things. We need their buses. We need their everything. And so I was watching a guy one time, he was talking about this. He said integration would have happened naturally. How do we know? He says, do you ever see sports? You seen basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's going to watch white basketball?
Right, exactly.
Right? So we would have figured it out.
Follow the European League?
Who follows the European League? I don't know.
I remember when they told me, like, what's the European League? What's the European League? I thought it was like NBA Junior, you know what I mean? There's like the MLB and the minor
JV.
Major League and the minor
JV.
leagues. Like,
JV.
I thought that was the minor leagues. Because I'm from Philly. I remember like Allen Iverson went to go play like in Turkey towards like the end of
Oh,
the
yeah, that's right.
And so I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, it's like the minor leagues, like dropped out.
I grew up with Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson's basketball. He came here to play in Tel Aviv a little bit after the end of his career, or whatever. Shout out to him. He just got a kidney transplant.
It's
really
interesting.
good.
I learned totally off topic.
Mm-hmm.
The two sports where Jews succeeded the most
Yeah.
are. You want to take a stab at it? Go back a while. We're not talking about.
Okay. Go back.
Let's say since 1900.
Since 1900.
Yeah.
Baseball.
Number 2 is basketball.
Number 2 is basketball.
Yeah. It's surprising, but we're going. No, number 1 is boxing.
I've seen Jew ball.
Boxing.
We got some ballers.
There are some boxers, right? That were really
boxing. Okay.
Strongly, we're overrepresented. I mean, doesn't.
Overrepresented.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, basketball less so.
I didn't even know
Are
that.
you following what's his face from the Trailblazers?
No. Yeah. I forget his name also too. I forget the guy's name.
Jane is last.
Yeah.
Like this guy's not Israeli.
Yeah. You're right. I forget his name also too.
He's putting up triple doubles.
Is he?
Yeah,
Really? That's very surprising.
Yeah.
That's very surprising. Okay, so listen, who watches basketball anymore anyway? It's all about football, man. Football's where it's at.
Why did that happen?
Why did that happen?
By the way, same thing about music.
You know what? I
think we
think
go from rock.
Uh-huh.
Right? I grew up on rock, metal, Metallica, Iron Maiden.
So I'm from Seattle, so we had Pearl Jam.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
right?
so whatever.
And reggae. I always loved reggae. Still love
Okay.
reggae. It's my favorite genre. And now it's like rock is dead. How did that happen? Right? You don't see there are no rock.
You're right.
It's not. Rock is dead.
Rock is pretty dead. Yeah, that's right.
What
I
happened?
mean, listen,
What's
hip hop is
happening in the
everything's
culture?
morphed. You know what I'm saying? Like
Is it moving fast? What is it?
I mean, hip hop, what it was also too, has been dead. It's dead for a while also too. So everything's morphing kind of into this as we become more technologically savvy, as to be back on topic. I think it's been the fascination that we've had before when people were actually to pick up an instrument and just be able to play it is like that's gone these days. Like it's much more so like how can a guy sit there on a Logic Pro program and type it? Like I'm more fascinated by a guy who can literally make music without being musical at all, and everything's just math. In his whole head, he's putting everything together, and you know what I'm saying. And now we have AI. Even I mean, so I think you're right. I think genres. I've never been a major fan of rock. I actually, quite interestingly enough, I would sit up and listen to movie scores more than I would even listen to hip hop. Like I love Hans Zimmer. I love movie scores. Like I could sit up and listen to that, even much more classical music as well. But yeah, so for me, that stuff is hard to recreate, but I think that a lot of the music industry has been taking a hit just because technology has been becoming so great. It's the same issue that I had, like waiting around on people, putting together a band. All of that is just sort of like it's time. Time is money. More people you have in a band costs more money.
Yeah, I know.
And it's
more people in the band.
Yeah.
It costs more, and you got to divide revenue.
Right. And you got to divide revenue.
So like, just be a DJ.
That's one reason why I was a solo artist for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely more economical, and then also you have more control, so you don't have to worry about the
absolutely
split up and all of that. So the technology in music is changing. I mean, you're seeing. I first saw on Joe Rogan. They put up, and it's got tens of millions of views. They're taking like old school. It's like hip hop, like 50% that, and it's played to like his lyrics to like 50 Cent blues jazz.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he
I
goes,
just came across
"Many
this.
men,
Oh, my
many men
goodness.
wish death
I love
upon
it, though.
I know. I was working
I
out
love
the other
it.
day, and I was like, all right, so that's like don't even bother making music.
Right.
It's over. It's so, like,
Yeah, with these, it's crazy. With like Suno, like right now, like I was sitting with another artist, and we're like having this conversation, and he's like just asking me because I've been kind of musically still the last couple of years. I released the album two years ago, now almost 3 years ago. If it gets to the summer, it'll be 3 years, but a little bit over 2 years ago. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was connected or not. I feel like it was connected. At the time, I more so felt like that. Right now, in retrospect, I don't know. But after October 7th, it was hard for me to make music. I was, dealing with my HBO deal. I was getting out of I had to deal with HBO for a TV series. And, that was sort of in an interesting place. Loved the people. Sally Richardson, shout out to her and everybody who really believed in that project. The writers that went on strike. And at some point, I start to realize this is not going to go morally the way that I want it to go. It's just not what it is. It's not because people are bad. It's because the standard of the way that I live as a Hasidic Orthodox Jew is just like really going to be very, very hard to tell and, put on this show the way that I wanted to. And the blessing and the curse was October 7th happened. After that, it fell on me because I had a non-relocation clause in my contract. So if they wanted to move the show to New York, then, I had the opportunity to say no, and I wasn't for sure going to leave. I'm already trying to stop leaving as much for touring. So I'm just bringing that up to say that. So what I saw, after that in all technology, so we're going back to the music. Suno. So I was sitting with another artist recently, and we're just talking about all this other stuff. And I told him, since it's October 7th, so I haven't really made so much music. And he goes, okay, so like if you could make music right now, what would you want, right? Because I'm like, part of the reason I'm still is because I have no creative ambitions with it really right now. And the things that I want are out of reach for me, right? I need Hans Zimmer's type orchestra. I need, this type of production and at this type of level. It should feel epic. I want Lion King. So I'm like explaining all this, and he's like, yeah, oh really? Like whatever. And then he like puts together some tracks like into like AI, and it creates crazy stuff. And he's like, don't tell anybody. So I'm like, okay. I didn't tell anybody. So I came back. I got like 50 beats from people that all made stuff on AI. They were doing the exact same thing. I was just like, listen, man, you're not as ahead of the curve as you think you are. It just, AI it's a scary thing. It lacks soul still. It still lacks soul, meaning that there's, yeah. I don't know if you can put that in there.
But it doesn't have to. Not that soul has to be in there. I think it's more that your soul can connect to it.
Yeah,
right? In a sense.
Right. So we have a term of Yotzi min halev, niknas halev. The words that come out of the heart go into the heart. That's not coming from heart. So there's still like in the film industry. You still have to be great at telling stories, right? Even though it's becoming just as crazy over there, right? The film and the amount of things. I mean, like almost all of these. I don't know what the plan is yet because I haven't really watched the layout, but I'm a big art list fan. Big art list, art grid, whatever. I love those guys. My assumption is, just because I haven't been really paying attention, I haven't been up on it, that a lot of the clips now, you don't need these freelance creators anymore because you could recreate those things with AI. Great prompter, you could do these things. So for me, it looks like, the industry has taken a hit and is only going to continue to take a big hit. So the question is, like in film, great storytelling, natural human error, which becomes the amazing part of making films great and things like that. I still see that surviving much longer, meaning humans interaction, much longer than I do for music. And it's hard for me because I'm a musician, but I still feel like there's something about that storytelling that's going to be very, very hard to replicate from AI, from a film standpoint, than I do with a musical standpoint. So in music, it's almost like, man, people are creating, they're like signing up prompters that are making AI artists, and they're getting $2 million deals with major companies and others. It's like, what? And then you have the other AI team that's created the avatar for this thing, and it's like, I don't know what's happening.
How much is live performance, like revenue for artists?
It's great. I mean, it's
because that has staying power.
Yeah, that has staying power. That's for sure true. For now, I've already seen some crazy things.
Like hologram stuff.
Oh man, I've seen some crazy things like that Fortnite thing. Like there, I have seen. I don't know if I can even speak on it right now, but somebody had actually presented me with. I don't know. It's not my thing. And there's a company I know that's in the middle of a raise right now for it, and they have basically. For me, I love it because I don't want to be on the road. Like I have 7 kids. I don't want to be on the road. I'm 100 days out of the year. I'm on the road touring and doing concerts and all that, and I enjoy it. And I also speak, so I'm I'm a double threat, as they say. However, the amount that you're on the road, what it does to the body, and whatever the case is, like I'm always looking for some way to like limit that. Now, okay, obviously I start a podcast, so then I'm speaking more, so that'll get that out. If I'm releasing music, I can just release music and I don't have to be there. However, nothing takes away that interaction. But with Fortnite, this hologram stuff, and what I've seen probably on the verge of AI, people are going to be able to get that experience from at home, especially with the VR glasses, with everything else that's going on now. And a lot of people have those now. People are going to be able to get that experience. How you charge for it, will it be the same? I don't know. Eventually people start to break those brackets as well. But yeah.
Do you see the opportunity here or more threat?
Yeah, I definitely see opportunity. We have to see opportunity. Rav Kook. Rav Kook looked at the world. Rabbi Avram Tzvi Kook, I think, actually was one of the first chief rabbis here in Israel, 1930s. The way that he saw the world was he never looked at all the new things, usually in, the more religious world, ultra-Orthodox world, which, I obviously subscribe to, a lot of times it's a threat. The new thing's a threat. Whatever it is a threat. Internet's a threat. All these other things like that, which could be. Like, internet for sure, I heard somebody say is a hammer. You could build a house or you could crack your head over the head with it. So, no doubt about it. But however, if you view things like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right, who understood, like, technology and radio and broadcasting, I can now take, these messages of hope and broadcast them out to more and more people. He invited technology. And I think that if we start looking at it that way, we start to look at it, and this is not a Jewish thing, this is a humanity thing. We should not be looking at how things are threatening us, right? We should be looking at the way of how we can implement those things and become better or create a better society from the things that we're seeing. So for me, as threatening as it should be, I'm already trying to figure out, like, how can I make this work to my advantage? And I think that that's how we should be. And that is what will make us be successful. And we won't, be worrying about, like you and I could cry about how hip hop's dead or rock and roll's dead and all that. Cause like the kids don't care about that. They're like, they have no, what they didn't have, right. They don't miss. You understand what I mean? Their nostalgia. Right. Nostalgia. And you can sit there all day long complaining about how things used to be and what they used to be and all this stuff. You will get nowhere doing that. Right. So you sort of have to be with the times, and as long as you can keep old school integrity, you'll be okay.
Well, yeah, there you go. I guess how did you keep the old school integrity? All the technology, really, tools is what we're seeing. But one of the things is that, which is great because, like, you're in the new media space. Maybe we can talk about your new media in a bit.
Let's talk about that.
But they are doing like the legacy media just scares you.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is going to take your job. These people want to hate you. Dividing. I mean, in Israel, it's like the worst. You should hate this group and hate that group, and not just the media. I mean, even politicians, right? In a group, and they're like, So when we had someone on, we had George Globman. He's a big AI guy. He talks about AI for like regular use, and we were talking. He was talking about. We got a little bit. He was saying that he wants buses on Shabbat, right? I get it, and I'm like, guys, all this is going away with self-driver cars. This whole thing.
So this won't be arguments.
This isn't an argument.
Right.
Self-driver car, it's private, it's not in a bus. Right. You press it, the app comes, picks you up, your grandma, whatever. Much cheaper, much safer. We don't have to worry about like drunk driving. And also, by the way, it drives me nuts with like the rail. I was like, rail is such an old technology.
Right.
Driverless cars like around the corner. Infrastructure should be built for this, right?
Right. Hear you.
But it's all like divide and conquer and fear instead of leading to the technology of opportunity. That technology can actually bring us together.
Right.
It actually can find and actually create common denominators amongst people that don't have as much common, or even more, that we have those common denominators, but we're fed that no, we should be divisive.
Perfect example. This new, I think, is Apple technology. This coming up with the headphones. Like, I could talk to somebody real time, and it's translating my language. Yeah, like that's bringing the world together. Like, you know what that's going to do for my wife? Like, whoever every couple of years, why did we move here? I don't know the language. You understand? Like, it's already, it could bring us together. We can understand each other. And so no doubt.
At the same time,
perfect example.
Depend on technology, then you don't necessarily feel that as as inclined to learn the language.
That's
And so
true.
we don't get as I don't know, maybe
That's true.
that's the other side. I'm not trying to be like those fear people. But
Yeah.
Look, we got GPS, and I don't know how to get
Listen,
around.
you're right. No doubt about it. Legacy media has done that. It does that. And now that the wool's been pulled off, it's almost like it put us in a worse situation, right? Because then you take the inclination of the person, the consumer of that media, and then whatever way that they lean, if they're more conspiratorial, if they're much less than that, whatever the case is, then the legacy media is only like the beginning, and then they concoct the way that what the real story is, even according to the way they're thinking, right? So that's been the problem, and people have, and what I've liked about the new media space, just because you brought it up, is the ability to be able to like just be you. Like, you know, I'll tell you this person I watch a lot. I'm sure you probably watch also Tusi TV. No, you don't know Tusi TV?
No.
So Mayor Tusi literally got me through the 12-day war over here. And he's a live streamer. Some guy's probably in a room much smaller than this. You know what I'm saying? He's live streaming. There's millions of people watching him, and he's literally updating. He's faster than the news. You know what I'm saying? You find out whatever it is on the news 5 days later, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that. You know when I noticed this was, and this is why I'm so exciting, because it's all the same energy. The music industry, they usually take the first hit. I really feel like the music industry usually takes the first. Now think about Napster and Rhapsody and all those other things when it came out, and how the rebound of the music industry was like, you know, obviously, how do we recapture all this? All these people are like selling the music.
Remember that Metallica South Park made such a great episode making fun of Lars from Metallica. No, I'm a Metallica fan. It's like, oh no, I can't get another new gold collar.
Right. It's crazy, right?
I remember downloading off LimeWire. Do you remember?
Yeah, LimeWire. Oh my goodness,
LimeWire, burning CDs. That was sitting in my bedroom.
Crazy. I mean, it's crazy stuff. So you think about that, and then here comes Spotify in the digital era of streaming music, and
nothing. You get like
you get
a
nothing.
fraction of a fraction,
Right.
of a fraction of a penny.
But you know, I think bought into their Sony and Universal. I don't think Warner was in that deal or anything like that. They probably also get some type of other way to kick back. So they capitalized and figured out, okay, this is how we use this new technology to be able to make money. And then the 360 deals come because you know, they're not making as much on the CD sales. So then so everything starts to form. And so we watched that happen with the music industry, and then until it got to this next phase when we seen people like, who is not a big supporter, Israel, but he was a good friend of mine, and obviously we're not so much friends today, Macklemore, right? So Macklemore drops, I think it was Thrift Shop, and I kind of watched that whole entire thing take place. Macklemore drops Thrift Shop, becomes a multi-platinum song. They did it completely independent. There's a whole lot of nuances to this story, and they went in, and I think what they did was they went to Warner and used the radio station, used their radio division. They wouldn't sign a deal with them. They're like, but, you know, let's do a percentage deal, and you just let us use your radio, and however they worked it out. And then you started to see, like, wow, as an independent artist, so that inspired, at that time, a lot of other people to be independent artists, because now, guess what? I get to cut out the middleman. I can go directly to the people. And that's where we are in technology today, and what it's been able to do in the film industry, or YouTube, and all these other things. Like, YouTube's the biggest. Everybody's on YouTube much more than on Netflix or anything else, right? And these are just regular people, you know what I'm saying? Like, just sitting in their rooms, the small rooms, and being able to talk over and to some degree. So what we're seeing by that is actually the opposite of what the legacy media is telling us. The people are connecting with the people directly.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
That's what scares them, right?
Right, and that's what scares them.
It's not just that it cuts them out.
Right.
It's the narrative.
It's the narrative.
It's not just the profit cut. It's
exactly.
Not I lose the power. It's that I lost the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. I lost the narrative. The ability to convey to you a narrative that you just absolutely have to believe in because I said it. So you're right. It's taking away the credibility from them. Corona did not help the media at all. No, it just didn't help.
They undermined themselves.
Yeah, they undermined themselves. So
everyone was home watching the media more than anything with fear.
Yeah.
And they could have done really good for people.
That's true.
And they could have done something great for their reputation, and they could have brought legacy. They could have brought themselves up and made themselves relevant into the future.
Right.
And I don't know if that's possible. Well, you know, interestingly, Barry Weiss, you know who she is?
Yeah.
From the
Free
press now. She's at CBS.
Free press. Yep.
Now she's at CBS.
CBS. Right.
So I'm wondering, like, okay,
or is it NBC? Whatever.
CBS.
You're right.
So I love her. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's got courage. She does new media. She
was at New York Times or something, right? At first, right?
At the New York Times. There were Slack channels saying how they're going to kill her for being Jewish and all this stuff.
Wow.
She was originally at the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
Then went to the New York Times. and then
Wow.
left because of anti-Semitism. She's
Right.
probably the most, probably widely read retiring, quitting letter that she put up on her website.
Wow.
You see what a great writer she is when you read that.
I didn't read that. I
You
think
should-
I heard
you should-
about it,
you
but I
should-
actually I didn't read it.
Yeah,
Actually.
when she left, and then so when she started the Free Press,
Mm-hmm.
and then now which is just new media,
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
up podcasts. Oh, Zoom, we can speak to the best
That's
people. We don't
amazing.
need permission. We go straight on the platforms.
Right.
But now they brought her on to Larry Ellison. They own
Right.
right Norco. They own
Paramount.
CBS,
Yeah. CBS.
They brought her on,
Uh-huh.
and the question is my curiosity as someone who loves new media.
Mhm.
Can we take the advantages of new media and can we save legacy media?
Mm.
Right,
That's a very good question.
But not focal in a way.
Very, very, very good question.
So in a way, I'm talking to people that more in the legacy space, very small players.
Mhm.
Hey, yeah, if you want to pick up my content,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, not even a deal. Is there a way that maybe traditional media starts playing new media over their airwaves and their platforms in a sense?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean,
Right.
if it's winning, it's winning, right? And that's what everybody wants at the end of the day. They want what is going to continue to help them thrive as a company, or whatever the case is. I seen that.
I don't think that's true. Whatever. In the end of the day, people will go bankrupt doing that. I mean, come
What do you mean?
Rolling Stones or whatever. I mean,
Okay,
by the
so
way,
you're right. You're right. There are some people.
Sports Illustrated.
There
they
are some people.
destroyed themselves.
Right. They are. You're right. No doubt
I
about
mean,
it.
even
So-
Playboy destroyed themselves.
Yeah.
By removing.
I can happily say I was never a subscriber. I was never a subscriber. Didn't expect that one. So anyway, listen. The truth is, you're right. There are some people who have grandpa syndrome, like we're saying, right? Like we just were talking about with the rock and roll and the hip hop. Back in my day.
With chocolate bars called
Yeah, exactly. No doubt about it. There are people that are stuck there and the control freaks and the power freaks. And so to their demise, yes, they will absolutely lose. But I'm talking about the common average person who wants to win. When you have young people that are winners that want to win, like this David Ellis, another deal also too. I think they were trying to buy just now HBO, actually Warner. I haven't been following over the last couple of days of where that's gone, but no doubt about it, they're gonna want new media and new program, because that's I think intentionally that's a part of some of his reason why he would like to buy, because those voices are not being amplified. The voices that need to be amplified, the stories that want, for instance, my documentary was one. Thank God, at that time Sally Richardson has a overall HBO, so she carries a lot of weight at HBO. She comes to them and she found me. She's like, I want to do a story on this guy. It makes a lot of sense. But at the time, I think it was HBO for sure, Netflix or whatever, they just wanted blood. Any documentary, anything, it's got to be about blood. Like somebody's dying. Because that's what's sold. That's what people. But how much of it is that this actually sells as opposed to this is what people like? Think about it. Think about the industry for real. If I play this song, 10,000 times on the radio, and it's become because everybody was paying, everybody knew about the kickbacks, what the label's been doing, or whatever on the radio. I can make you like it. You know what I'm saying? I can make you like something. And so the problem that we've had in Hollywood, I think in media or whatever, is that it goes back to what we said, is that the narrative being pushed, right? And so what happens is people become conditioned, right, to see a certain thing. Doesn't mean they like it. They've been conditioned to see it. Because think about it. Everybody, how many people who grew up watching, things like the Cosbys? I grew up watching the Cosbys. I literally bought the whole entire set of that, when DVDs were still in, after the fact, and watched them on rerun over and over and over again, right? Even though at the time I was conditioned to see all the new things that were going on, but it still was something about that. Or staying up late watching Nick at Night. Nick at Night wouldn't have been such a big hit. It was such a great thing, right?
With the 90s.
Right.
I think we just need now I don't know much of this nostalgia, and I know everyone our age, we're the same age, is biased. The 90s were the best. Western civilization is culturally.
Right.
I feel like everyone that grew up in the mid 80s feel that way, early 80s. But
I like music from the 60s better though.
Oh yeah,
I love Motown.
Yeah,
that was my whole movement.
Love it.
Smokey Robinson, the Temptations, that was. I feel like music was the best back at that
R&B?
time. Loved R&B. Yeah, loved R&B.
R&B's way to go. You were saying, I'm thinking. So how can we take what people are expecting in the culture, let's say, that may not be so positive or spiritually aligned? And can you blend the two? I remember when our friend Elisa, right, from the Jewish Matchmaking, and I remember the opening scene. I remember her telling her about it on Shabbat. I was like, the opening scene, before they even show her, right? It's like showing the bus. I remember it was Miami or something. And then there's like this girl, you don't even see her face, and it's just her walking by in like just her butt, like walking in Miami. You know what I mean? In like a thong bathing suit or something. And I was like, Elisa, I thought this was like a Jewish date. And she goes, Netflix does the editing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly.
My question is, that's before you even see her face, you see that. And
yeah.
So if you're trying to reach a broader audience to deliver a more positive message,
right,
which Elisa's doing,
right.
The question is, a teaspoon of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Yeah,
and maybe what you think is sugar may not be good for you.
Right.
But maybe that's what it is that brings people in. Since you're the new media space and you're communicating with people, whether it's music, whether it's in person, whether it's live, whether it's you're podcasting, here's a guest, or doing your own thing, and your speaking arrangements, do you feel that one way you can connect to people that may not be so inclined to hear you for the things that you're most passionate about, spirituality as an example, do you sometimes need to go into more of the physical to bring them in?
Absolutely. And I think that has been one of the things I had to realize. I had to learn it the tough way, right? So how do you learn it? By the war happening, here in Israel. And then, speaking. And then whenever you talk about like the spiritual things, it just doesn't do that well in the algorithm. It's just being honest with what it was. And it wasn't anything intentional. It's just like something happened, the Bieber's kids or something like that happened, or something that would happen either socially or politically connected with what was going on. And you see those things fly off. So there's two ways to read that. One person can say, oh, wow, I see that works. Let me keep leaning into that, right? So that's one thing. That's a person that's opportunistic, right? And they see it as like, oh, wow, there's really opportunity here or whatever. And I was I'm by nature, I'm against that. Even though I know that that's what makes businesses better or whatever the case is. I've done a lot of content surrounding one particular person that we don't have to mention right now, right? I was very against it. I told my team, like, I don't even want to do it. But there's another way to look at it. Then there's the Rav Kook way. And the Rav Kook way, as I was discussing about earlier, as when you see these new things, we don't get threatened by them. We don't see, like, there's a reason why this is popular. There's a reason why God allowed for this to be popular amongst people. There's a reason why this subject specifically, for me as a spiritual person, why people are leaning into it. That is an indication for me that God wants me to be talking about it. Because at the end of the day, right, God's in the same business, meaning the people. It's about the people. How many people? The whole entire Bible is talking about the kavod, the glory of God, and spreading all throughout the world. Like, that's the ultimate mission at the end of the day. So if you're in a place where only you and 5 other people are enjoying the content, like, that's probably not the place you want to be, right? So you want to be in the place where you can actually speak, because how will you ever convey your message if only 5 people are listening to you, right? So sometimes, for sure, you have to go into those things that are attractive for people. But then the things that you go into, right? And I just was talking about this, that you have to lean into that may either push you outside your comfort zone, or they may not be the main thing that you want to talk about at that time, but you may be, interested enough to bring it up. The things that you decide to allow to lean into is going to curate the audience, going to bring an audience to you that is attached to some of those things that you've used to basically get your messaging across. So, for instance, in the case of, the show, you're probably going to get, and I didn't talk to Elisa about this, but you will probably also find a lot of people who are not like-minded as you, that you will probably not last that long in the room with, because they're pulled in by the things that almost go completely opposite of what your messaging is, but you use it to get people in there, right? And that's a big thing for messaging. So for me, leaning into a lot of the things that I will lean into, whether they're social issues or things like that I know everybody wants to listen and talk about, and then I can bring a message of hope or a message of faith or spirituality in there also, is that I typically know the type of people that I can send that messaging to. And it's important for me to think and be very conscious about the audience that you're building, because it's like, who's celebrating you? Who's talking about you? Like, who are those people? Because once you start to think about that, that says a lot about who you actually are, right? And then what makes it easy for you to continuously serve that audience is when you're in your element, in your space. And the things that you're using, everything starts to work together, because even if I had to delve into a particular thing to bring people into the room, I didn't go outside the bounds of who I am. It's when you go very far outside the bounds of who you are, you can find yourself stuck and trying to resurface an audience that is just doesn't work for you. And this is where I think a lot of people in the industry, whether it's podcasting, whether it's, podcasting is fairly new, but I'm talking about actors and people that had platforms and all that, where they just have these mental breakdowns. It's like, because you've been pretending to be something for a very, very long time. And so that drew an audience that you had to keep servicing that was not your natural person.
There's one more kind of topic I want to touch on you before we end. We're way over time. But is because you're very much spiritual, God's man.
Yeah.
And then, right, you're into the tech stuff.
Right.
Since a young age, since a little boy, you've been exposed to it. I see like a lot of people think, technology, I think it comes from means made by man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, these are all, a spiritual person, these are all tools from God for us to go ahead, create and make the world a better place.
Right.
Where do you think there are conflicts and overlap and opportunity between, let's say, spiritual world and the technical world where we maybe give humans too much credit, let's say, as opposed to the creator?
It's a very, very good thing. I will listen. Very much so clearly believe that the creation creates, right? Because it's a part of the DNA of the human being. Because we come from a creator, we naturally create things. That's just what we do. So in that sense, it's a natural, progression of humanity to create things that are going to make life easier, make life more simple, that is, going to entertain us, right? Whatever the case is. So all those things are very natural, and as long as a person is grounded, I guess I would say, in terms of spirituality, which is very hard to do, I don't know if technology is an issue for that. Most people go immediately to the technology and say that the technology, if a person doesn't have their own personal filter, they're going to use technology for whatever. There are people who have literally, like, if you take yourself out a little bit of thinking about where we are today, and this is actually something said by the Hasidic master Rabbi Nachman many years ago. Before this was, today it means something completely different. There are people who literally sat up and figured out how to make bombs to kill a massive amount of innocent people at one time. Think about it. That's what they did with their technology. They sat up and really thought of how can they destroy the most amount of innocent people at one time. That's what they decided to do with the technology, right? And then there were other people who sat up and figured out ways how they could use technology to do a heart transplant or to do a kidney transplant. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a tool
that is,
used for good
it
or
could
bad.
be used for good or
Just
bad.
like the tongue in your mouth.
Exactly. And so the problem I think that we're having with technology is everybody's afraid of, especially, the more religious you get and whatever the case is, it's spiritual world. It's not germane just to the Jewish world. I'm talking about anywhere. Everybody understands the threat of technology, but it's not the threat of technology. It's the threat of a person not being well grounded in who they are, and when they get a hold of it, that's the biggest issue, right? So I don't think that there's an issue with the technology, and I think that very much so these things align with themselves. I believe that God specifically put us in this time right now with the AI, with all these other things, like right now, for us to get more deeper of understanding. I'm not like a science guy that's very into all those type of things. I'm much more so old school in the time. I think 7 days was 7 days. I think, like, I'm not very, very into a lot of those, like, oh, well, now we know how God, we'll never know really how those things were. But I would definitely say the problem with technology today has everything to do with the people who use it. It's not a thing. It's not that the technology in and of itself.
But they also change the people too, so that's why it's.
Well, people sometimes
and
it change.
also,
It's the consumption of other people, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what ends up changing people. That's what I'm saying. That's the human dynamic. It's not technology on its own, right? Even if you watch an AI film that dramatically changed the way you think about something, like, it was still prompted by somebody, right? So at the end of the day, it's always the people relationship sometimes that will either persuade a person one way or the other way. You understand what I mean? So at the end of the day, that goes back to human beings.
All right, and wait, tell us about your new media venture before we go ahead.
So right now I'm working on
All about new media.
all about new media right now. On
the next generation, where people are on their favorite screen.
Exactly. So I guess I would say very similar to either Netflix or Daily Wire, podcast / streaming service right now that basically amplifying, voices that speak to current events, biblical prophecy. I have a large, obviously, like faith-based, I would say, Christian, Jewish, whatever, audience that sometimes I feel like, especially here in Israel, but like we're not really speaking to the things that are actually pushing us, like that's really, really causing us to dig deeper and to really grow as human beings. Some of the things that we're talking about right now. And I think that, like for instance, a lot of things that's going on in the media, we talked about some of the manipulation and all the other stuff like that that's going on from the legacy media or whatever. We call it moral edge, right? Because one of the things that's for sure that's been lost has been morality and moral clarity. And I think that there's one sense of where you're like,
why?
Huh?
Why was it lost? You can't just gloss over.
You can't just gloss over. Why? I mean, you talk about loss. Well, I think part of that has been the agendas, right? Like we talked about the fight. There's been an internal fight and battle, no matter what side it is, socially, politically, whatever the case is, to control that narrative, right? And so somewhere within there, the polarization that's happened to the world, that if you think this, then you must be that. If you think this, then you're that, and you're this and that, whatever. Because of that, that's all come about from the fight to control the narrative. And what happens in the midst of it, you have people that feel sometimes that things are off, they're not right, but they don't understand that from a moral standpoint. Like, we should be really recognizing, like, you see a certain thing in a movie and you just gloss over it. How long have we done that? For years. We've seen certain things, and then you go back and it's like, hold on, that was an agenda, right?
You didn't even know.
You didn't even know it. You have no idea. And in other areas of my life, it desensitized me. Right. And because of that, I haven't been the father I wanted to be. I haven't been the husband that I wanted to be. I haven't been you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
it's hard for people to connect those dots.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't connect those dots.
It's the water that you're fishing water. You don't feel it.
Exactly. So you're swimming in it. So I wanted to be able to put out content that not only inspires, right, or calls out these moral things, but it's sort of like, how am I looking at these things? Like, this is why this is bothering me, right? It's because of this issue. You know what I'm saying? This person who gets up and commentates and other stuff like that, there is what it looks like when the person's an upstanding person. Some people, like, one of the toughest parts I had being in the Jewish Orthodox world as a rapper, right? There's people that just like, if it's rap, it's bad.
Right.
Like, it's like I could tell the difference between a person who's like a gangster rapper and a person who's speaking positivity or whatever. But when you're completely disconnected, it's all the same thing. You understand what I'm saying?
Are we putting too many are Jews putting too many let's say Torah observant Jews? Are there too many fences that we're putting around that we're not even, therefore all rap is bad. Everything's bad.
Yeah.
Everything's bad. I have a cousin who's Haredi, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the house for Shabbat once. And I was saying that it was in B'nai Brak and these signs, internet mavis sartan. Right?
Yeah.
Internet brings cancer.
Right.
And I was like, so I was like, so I got like cancer in my bag over there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And she goes, it's got the same Kamachi. I did the Kamachi.
Yeah,
I was like, oh shit, it does.
It could be something to
what
it.
You're doing new media,
right?
Hebrew, whatever. They're
right.
Everyone's got their.
Hebrew has exactly. So I think everybody kind of understands that. But you're right. There are some. There's different approaches, right? So you'll have even some Hasidic groups and rabbis or whatever that opt for their people to have technologies and certain smartphones with, obviously with filters and different things like that, because we're living in a world where what happens is sometimes when you put up so many boundaries on things, the moment that a person touches something or they see that it's not, they didn't get struck by lightning or something like that, then it's like they just go all the way off.
Like,
because if you lied to me about this, what else did you lie to me about, right? You understand what I mean? So I think that's a major issue, and people don't delve into the work. And this is part of what I've been wanting to do with Moral Edge and with the media.
Moral Edge is the name of your.
Is the name of our new media company. But the reason why is because, like, we were created, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna get very spiritual here, but I very much so believe.
Get spiritual.
Yeah, okay. We're created in the image of God. All throughout, the Bible in itself is all about this return of humanity, of God trying to get humanity to return itself to him, right? In terms of living with a relationship. Everything's relationship based. You look at King David, you look at Samuel, you look at all these people, and you'll see Daniel, he's called, Hashem's Hamudi. You see David's a man after God's own heart. Abraham is Avraham Ohavi, my beloved, right? So all these things. And for me, I looked at that and said, in a very jealous way, like, God, how do I get those names, right? Like, how do I get to be that special? Everything was always about relationship, right? And so what happens is that once there's a relationship there, it's easier to obey or to do what you're being asked because there's a relationship. When there's no relationship and that person's a distant person or you don't really know who they are, the moment that a request comes in, you're just like, why do I really need to do that? There's not really things. And the relationship about God, what's so most important about that is, they used to say this a lot when I used to go, unfortunately, where I come from, I've been to a lot of funerals, right? And one line that they will always say at a funeral, the guy in the casket could have been the worst person in the world. He could have been. They always say to know him is to love him. Right? He could have ripped off everybody in the room, and that could have absolutely not been true. But one of the things that, for me, what I come to know is that to know God is to love God. So that love and that sense of infatuation even would drive a person to want to do more and to be able to build that relationship. And I think that becomes the filter on which we conduct ourselves in the world, how we use technology, how we parent, how we treat other people. And I feel like a lot of the components have been, there's so many inspirational speakers. Everybody's on somebody's couch because they got a problem, right? So like so everybody feels the need to have, some type of psychiatry help. I mean, in the generations before, did they have mental health days? Like people took off mental health days? It wasn't a thing.
It wasn't space for it.
Right? Wasn't space for it.
It's just like all like the radical, like complaining about issues that aren't issues.
Right.
That society has now.
Exactly.
We're so damn comfortable.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
we're complaining about things that aren't real.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We're protesting about things that aren't real. Meanwhile, or 20,000 slaughtered in the night in Iran.
Right.
No one protesting.
Nobody protesting.
No one
right.
commenting.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
No, because you know what? Because not look at me.
The proving the point is that the more we have, you look at this in the Jewish world. I said, how could it be that they told us that Torah was supposed to do X and this, and there's more people sitting and learning in yeshivas and institutions more than ever, and we're producing less big people, less big, as we would say, gedolim and rabbis. How does it happen? If generations ago there was, you never heard of a non-religious Jew, right? It wasn't never a thing.
There were actually, I'll push you on that because we talk about Nevi'im or right? And I think one of the big things that people don't read in Nevi'im and Ketuvim.
Okay.
Jews, they're just so ignorant of the Bible. And we're talking about Tuvia. Talking about Ezra and Nehemiah. That when they came to rebuild the second.
Yeah, for sure. Then, that was the one. That was the really one time that really happened. Prior to that, you had people. So prior to the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the second gathering of people coming back after the Babylonian exile, after the 70 years. Yes, there were a lot of people who were not religious, completely ignorant of Torah, didn't observe, intermarried, the whole everything. But very interesting, though, they had a heart for the land. There was still some type of connection there. However, they were not religious. Prior to that, though, before the Babylonian exile, if you look at the critiques that God is giving through the prophets to the people, it's not about not being religious or not keeping the Torah. It's the fact that they're doing both. You're so religious, you trust in me and another God at the same time. You're going to my temple and you're going to their temple. So by Saturday you're at the temple. Sunday you're on church. Yeah. And then it's like so that was the problem. Was like you're doing too much over there. So the problem is that during that 70-year exile and the whole story of Daniel, Purim, everything happens during that time, and the return people are completely at this point illiterate because they've been so estranged from Torah, and there were a few people that were already still here that was estranged. There was no Torah in the land, so you did have that period of time. But after that was really Ezra, and which people will argue, but the I wouldn't say the advent, but the rebuilding and the bolsterizing of rabbinic Judaism that sort of put up more of these guardrails that created the Judaism of what we know today. So that created this. So what I mean by that is that after industrial movement and the Enlightenment movement and all these other things, that's really when you started to see Jews start to really veer, obviously more so in Europe. That's why, so because of that, though, forget my whole point is, but the reason why I say that this is such an important thing today is because specifically we don't learn the book, right? The book. Jewish people call the people of the book. What book? You ask a yeshiva bacher, guy who's learning right now today in a yeshiva, he thinks is talking about the Talmud. You realize the Talmud was not a book; it's oral Torah.
They're Charedim, and it was my cousin's son. And now my cousin, he's British, Tamani Haredi. He's got 11 kids, right? Or 8 kids. And he was with his brothers, so I was 11 kids. And we're there, whatever, we're talking to her. I bring my Dvar Torah and all that, and then the Parsha. And so his nephew, because we're going to family, go up north, and I join them on Shabbat once. And they love that I come because I push and I challenge them. And
you like it.
I'm very anti what they learn in yeshiva. And they love that I challenge them, but they don't get it. The father, they love it. And I come and I asked him, so like a Dvar Torah, and I asked him, he was like 24, newlywed, okay? And he didn't know what the Parsha was. Ask him what the parsha.
Mm.
I'm like, so you sat in yeshiva all day under my textile. Do you even know the parsha?
Yeah.
I went pro yeshiva and anti yeshiva because of just now, just so you know.
See, but this is my point though. What you
I
were
was
saying
trying to
before.
make a point. It's like, what are you learning?
What are you learning? Right.
What are you learning? Like you're seeing now you're just studying the fence. It's just the klipa. Oh.
Yeah, right. See, even my kids, they learn this a lot of times. They don't know what the parsha is, and it's not that the school's not great. They're learning great things, but they what's back to the simplicity. But this is what I'm saying. Everything that we talked about, you said because, and that was the main point of what I wanted to get to today was, or what I was talking about was, you said because we have so much, it's almost nothing that we're upset about, right? We have mental health breakdown because of this happened or that happened or this, and all these things. And you're saying that because we have too much, and this is why I brought up the Torah world. The problem is that there's nothing that suffices. And this is going to sound very, very Christian, but it's such a great analogy of something that they used to talk about in a ministry called the God hole. No matter how many things you fill your life up with, if you don't have God, it's still empty. And that's what the generation has happened today in his humanity. This is why everybody's on somebody's couch. This is why everybody's taking drugs. And this is why everybody's trying to find some type of fix. But it's the God hole. Like, this is what we're missing as a humanity. Even in those earlier generations, it was just a better society when people believed in God. They went to shul, they went to church, they were, God believed, and that was the center of their faith, and those things were the center of their home. And then outside, they also worked. They also were members of society. And I think that because we're lacking that, this is going back to plug more ledge, it's like we got to get back to the basics. You know what I mean? We got to get back to the basics, and that is we were created in the image of God and for God.
Mm-hmm. All right, so if you guys want to get back to the basics, follow Nissim Black at the Nissim Black Show and your new media company, Moral Edge.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Thank you.
Let's bring it all back to the basics.
Bringing it back.
On IsraelTech.
Thank you.